Planning Commission. For those in the room and on Zoom, if you have come because you're interested in item number 6, that has been deferred. So I wanted to be sure that if that's what you're interested in, you may prefer to leave. Okay. Now, I think the first thing that we can take up are the minutes from our last meeting of November 17.
Have her read the rules first. For Becky.
Oh, I did. I forgot. Becky, thank you.
I think you need to mute.
I apologize. I'm confess to everyone. I think it's Christmas Eve tonight, and so I'm so excited that I get out of line.
All right, thank you, Vice Chair. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to go over a little rules for the meeting tonight. Please silence your cell phones to minimize distractions during the meeting. When the Vice Chair calls for public comment, please approach the podium to indicate you wish to speak. Virtual participants should use the raised hand function to indicate that they wish to speak during public comment. Once your name is called, please unmute and turn on your camera to provide your comments. Please state your name before speaking. The city reserves the right to turn videos off or mute participants. All comments will be limited to 3 minutes. The primary format to access and participate in this meeting is in person at City Hall. Virtual access to view or participate in the meeting cannot be guaranteed. The chat function will not be monitored. If you have any trouble, the meeting can be viewed on the city's YouTube channel and cable channel 25. And with that, I'll turn it back over to the Vice Chair.
Thank you. Has everyone had an opportunity to receive and amend or approve minutes? Any questions? Any motion?
Move approval of the minutes.
Second? Commissioner Rexroad and Commissioner Duvert. All in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Unanimous approval. Thank you very much. We have committee reports. Commissioner Thomas, will you report on the Metropolitan Planning Organization Board?
We met, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I don't remember when, and looked at all kinds of budget items and construction items that the city was looking at, and approved those. I'm trying to think what else we looked at, and I believe that was it.
And I attended the North Lawrence Comprehensive Corridor Study on December 10th. And this was an open house meeting at venue 1235, which was a new location for me. The consultants had made boards out of the results of the earlier meeting so that we could all review what had happened. And they had stickers that we could put on these boards and indicate what we liked about them, and encouraged us to do a survey. Now, the survey is open until the early part of January, and that's available for everyone if you go on the North Lawrence Comprehensive Corridor Study website. And they want to know what you like about North Lawrence, what you'd like to see changed, what kinds of change you'd like to see. And they're doing, I think, a very good job of trying to get as many people as possible to provide input. Mr. Crick, have we had any written communications from the public?
All communications received by the deadline were included as part of your packet for this evening.
Okay. And have we received any written communications from staff, planning commissioners, or other commissioners?
None this evening.
Have we received written action of any waiver requests, determinations made by the city engineer?
Also none this evening.
Has anyone have disclosure of ex parte communications?
Jane?
Yes.
It's not, I'm sorry, ex parte, I got ahead of myself. Never mind.
All right. Does anyone have a declaration of abstentions from specific agenda items by commissioners?
Not extension, it was, I wanted to talk about I don't have a conflict on item number 6, I think it is. But just out of an abundance of appropriateness, I want to point out that I was a previous owner of the building that's not item 6, golly, I'm a mess, item 4, on the one on Pennsylvania Avenue. I'd owned that building sold that previously this year, but have no financial interest in it. Just wanted to make sure that that was known.
Thank you for that disclosure.
You're welcome.
We're now at the point where anyone can make some general public comment about anything that is not on our agenda this evening. Is there anyone in the room who has any comment they would like to make? Is there anyone online who has a comment?
No, I'm not seeing anyone indicating they wish to speak.
Thank you. We'll move on to the first item on our agenda. And
Evening,
Thank you, Ms.
Commissioners.
Mullins.
Ellie Mullins, planner. One moment, let me get my PowerPoint up. Surprised I need to raise this. Okay.
I think it's bottom right.
Bottom right. Oh, wrong one.
That was close.
Okay, here we go.
Sorry
Here's,
about that.
no worries. Okay, so our first item is a final plat proposal for a lot north of Mercato Drive to accommodate a Costco wholesale development. The property is within the area known as Mercato. The area was originally preliminary platted in 2017, and as portions have been final platted, newer revised preliminary plats were approved in 2018 and 2022. This slide shows the areas that have been final platted in purple, yellow, and red. So the yellow was the most recent in 2022. So on this slide, we have the proposed final plat area in the drawing for Mercato 4th edition. So this is a final plat, and final plats are typically approved administratively. However, the subdivision regulations state that if the final plat does not substantially comply with the approved preliminary plat, the final plat shall be placed on the Planning Commission's agenda for further consideration in accordance with the preliminary plat review and action provisions. The proposed final plat includes a new lot and tract configuration, additional easements to be dedicated, and a new north-south street. So on the left here, we have the preliminary plat that was revised in 2022, and then we have the final plat area, which would be this area in blue. We have it over here. This is the proposed final plat drawing. As the final plat and the easements and rights of way to be dedicated do not conform with the approved preliminary plat, the final plat is before the Commission tonight for action. These two criteria here. As part of the approval of the final plat, a revised preliminary plat has been submitted for consideration and should be reviewed based on the review criteria for preliminary plats. Discussion of these criteria was included in the packet. The subject property was included in the revised preliminary plat for PF-22-00218, which was approved by the Planning Commission in 2022. And again, we have that over here on the left. The following changes are proposed with the wider revised preliminary plat. So it'd be that inclusion of that north-south street all the way up to Rock Chalk Drive, extension of Mercato Terrace East, the existing 2 lots under the preliminary plat to be adjusted into 9 lots, additional drainage tracts and easements, and dedication of utility, pedestrian, and access easements to serve the new lots. here are those changes if we need to come back to them. The proposed preliminary plat meets the criteria subject to the conditions listed in the staff report. The criteria dependent on or potentially impacted by those conditions are marked on this slide with an asterisk. Those conditions that are in the report are summarized here and include approval of the traffic study, drainage study, and a waiver from incorporation of a pedestrian easement on a block that exceeds the maximum length, which I will describe in just a moment. If significant changes result from the finalized studies, the plat will need to come back for reconsideration. As just mentioned, there is an additional item for the Planning Commission to consider as part of their approval tonight. The plat includes multiple local street blocks that exceed the maximum length of 800 feet, as described in the subdivision design standards. Through approval of the revised preliminary plat, the Planning Commission may approve block lengths greater than 800 feet when there are alternative pedestrian routes incorporated every 700 feet and site conditions that prevent blocks from being broken up. The applicant has indicated that the topography and characteristics of the area prevent block lengths from being reduced and have included pedestrian easements in these locations throughout the preliminary plat area in all blocks except for the proposed final plat area, this block right here. In this location, they request the requirement for a pedestrian easement to be waived per section 20-1110H4I. So that allows the Planning Commission to waive with that requirement. The applicant has indicated that the steep slopes and stormwater detention area along the western portion of the lot do not allow for shorter block length or dedication of a pedestrian easement across the lot. The improvements to the subject lot will include walkways from the entrance of the proposed building to the adjacent streets. Staff found the proposed design and waiver request to be reasonable given the character of the and topography of the area as well as the alternative pedestrian path. In addition to the preliminary plat exhibit, we have the final plat. So Mercato 4th edition would be in the southwest corner of the preliminary platted area, and it is the only portion proposed to be final platted with this application. It's approximately 970,000 square feet and has an associated drainage tract that's about 141,000 square feet. As part of the final plat, the adjacent right-of-way for Centrale Drive and a roundabout at Entrada and Mercato Drive would be dedicated, as well as the associated easements for the lot. The associated public improvements, such as streets, sidewalks, and utility connections, would need to be guaranteed prior to recording the final plat at the Register of Deeds. The final plat that has been submitted meets these review criteria based on the revised preliminary plat and subject to the conditions listed in the staff report. All subsequent final plats, if they're in compliance with the approved preliminary plat, would be able to be approved administratively. So staff recommends approval of the proposed final plat and associated revised preliminary plat, subject to the conditions listed in the staff report. This approval would be for the final plat, or for the plat, both of them, as drawn, with the proposed longer block lengths when pedestrian easements are shown. We will take a separate vote on the waiver request from providing pedestrian easements through Block 1 of Mercato 4th edition, so that final platted area for clarity. Staff also recommends approval of that request. I can take any questions on this now. Otherwise, the applicant is here as well.
Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Storm, were you going to make a presentation? Or someone else?
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. I'm Matthew Goff with Barber Emerson Law Firm. I represent the owners of the Mercato development. I'm joined this evening by Mr. Chris Storm of Storm Engineering Group, who prepared the plat, and he can answer any technical questions you have about it. I'm also joined by representatives of the development group. The plat application before you this evening is the fourth final plat to derive from the original 2017 preliminary plat. The first plat being the hotel the second plat being LMH West, the third plat being everything south of Mercato Drive. Two of those lots have been sold south of Mercato Drive, one to Brahms and one to Trudy Credit Union. So this fourth plat is just the next sequential step in the development of the Mercato commercial subdivision. This is not a rezoning application. The Mercato development is zoned CC 600 and has been allocated 360,000 square feet of retail space. Because this is merely a plat application, the Land Development Code tasks you with approving any plat that meets the criteria of Section 20-1109, subsection D, as noted by the staff and in the staff report. This preliminary plat does meet the criteria for approval set forth in Section 20-1109, subsection D, and therefore should be approved. You're also being asked this evening to find that the block length of this lot may exceed 800 feet. Similarly, you're being asked to waive the requirement to dedicate pedestrian easements across the site. In both cases, the fact that the western portion of the lot will have steep slopes and a stormwater detention area justify your approval of the plat as submitted. The lot will include walkways from the entrance of the proposed buildings to both Central and the proposed roundabout at Mercato Drive and Entrada Drive. As we just saw, the staff recommends approval of the waiver requests. This subdivision exists for the purpose of accommodating large retail development, and this development group has been working on this particular opportunity for many, many years. Now that the moment has arrived, time is of the essence. We therefore request your approval of this plat application, and we are pleased to stand for any questions you have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there any public comment regarding this item? I don't see any in the room. Becky, is there any?
No, I'm not seeing anyone online either.
Okay. Then I'll bring it back to the commission for discussion and questions.
Yeah, I have a question for Ellie. Ellie, the pedestrian easement, there is currently like if you go visit the site, there's currently places where pedestrians can walk. Is that going to be affected? Is that going to be left alone? I just want to understand what this is going to do to what's already there.
So the only areas that we would view as being pedestrian connections currently are the sidewalks within the street right-of-way. So when we look at the block length, we're looking at whether we want that to maintain under a certain length, because that's where we would see a street connection, a pedestrian connection in the street right-of-way.
Okay.
And that's where that requirement for then a pedestrian easement through the property comes into play. I'm not familiar with what's there currently beyond the street right-of-way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question for the applicant, Matt. Maybe you could start. Do you have any concerns about any of the 10 conditions that were made on this?
No, the applicant is fine with all the conditions. One of those conditions is that you approve the waiver this evening, and so we'd like you to approve that. But otherwise, yes.
There are 10 separate conditions that are
Correct,
called
yes.
out.
Yep.
Yeah. And I know that getting that waiver done is going to be a key part of it, too. So thank you for that.
Sure.
Question, maybe Jeff or for Ellie. Number 9, I've not seen this on a condition list before. It says all taxes paid before recordation. I don't even know what recordation means.
That would be recording at the Register of Deeds. It's a requirement for all final plats, and you typically don't see it because final plats don't typically come to the planning
In your
commission.
presentation, it specifically said property taxes, which I guess I kind of understand, but that isn't really a land use issue, so I'm not sure why it's on here.
It's a requirement for documents to be recorded at the Register of Deeds.
Okay, but why isn't that on every applicant? I don't know. I'm not trying to make something that's not there, but
She was saying it's because we don't see final plats
Correct.
They're usually administratively approved, so they're on all final plats. They just don't come to us.
Right.
The language is on all finals?
Yeah, when we do the administrative staff report for final plat, that is typically one of the conditions that shows up on there, but because they're administratively approved, it's a condition that staff puts on it and applicants are aware of. So many of the comments that you see on a final plat, you see here tonight because this is functioning as the final plat. So it's not an uncommon thing to see on a final plat when it's just not common for you all to see that. And recordation is just a fancy planning word for register of deeds.
I'm just a little uncomfortable saying, that we're going to require all tax, I don't know what all tax, sales tax?
It's there's statutes that are required before the Register of Deeds can record something into the books that the property taxes have to be paid.
This is standard language and these guys are okay with it, then I guess I'll stop worrying about it. All right, thank you. I'm excited for this, I'm excited to support it. We were out taking a look at it. I agree that there's topology challenges, and they're going to come up with other stuff that make that simple requirement of pedestrian easement given a certain number of feet. This is a very large project, so I'm sure they'll manage that well, but I'm excited to support it.
Mr. Crick, I have one question for you. Do we only need to vote on the final plat and the associated preliminary plat, or do we need to vote separately on the waiver?
We would request that you vote separately on the waiver, just so it's clearly recorded, and then take a vote on the plat. So if the commission would grace us with that, it would be the vote on the waiver and then the vote on the plat, which would clear the condition on that one.
Well, this is a lot of hard work, and I'm so excited to see this coming to fruition. I think it's great for the community. Is there a motion?
I'd make it. What's the language on the waiver?
On the waiver.
What's yeah, if you don't mind, thank you.
Because I see the other, I don't see the waiver. Okay, maybe that's what she's going to.
Just lost it. Oh, it's coming.
Rendering.
Just gotta believe.
Maybe I'll stop presenting and then,
It says at the top, end of slide.
oh, okay,
Who has put? Yeah,
there we go.
Yay.
All right, before it goes away. So staff recommends, so here's the motion. Staff recommends approval. So the Planning Commission recommends approval of the requested waiver from the subdivision regulations for pedestrian easements on proposed Block 1 of Mercato 4th Edition.
And is there a second?
Second.
Just as a point of order there, it's not you're not recommending it in this instance, you're actually approving the waiver in the instance.
We're approving it. Okay, the Planning Commission approves the requested waiver. You removed your, sorry. From
making a motion?
I'm making a motion to approve. Planning Commission approves the requested waiver from the subdivision regulations for pedestrian easements on proposed Block 1 of Mercato 4th Edition.
Second.
Second? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Any discussion? Any discussion?
Sorry,
It's okay.
leaping ahead. Seeing no discussion, all in favor indicate by raising your right hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Is there another motion?
Got it. You've been asking.
Yes, there's another motion.
Commissioner Rexroad.
I move we approve the proposed final plat-25-0024 for Mercato 4th Edition, and associated revised preliminary plat, subject to the conditions listed in the staff report.
Second.
And second, is there any discussion? Would all in favor please indicate by raising your right hand? Passes unanimously.
Thank you all.
Thank you all, and thank you all.
Can't wait.
And how soon will the store be open?
Thank you for doing it.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 2. Drew? Good evening.
Good evening. Get this up a little bit. Okay. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Drew Bielby. I'm a planner. Item number 2 here is rezoning for the lots addressed as 1800, 1825, and 1845 Tennessee Street. The rezoning is for 0.91 acres to be rezoned from R3, the residential medium density district, to R4, the residential high density district. So here is a quick location map for your reference. It's on the intersection of West 19th Street and Tennessee Street. So the key points for this rezoning is to facilitate the development of a multi-unit dwelling use. Per section 20-803, multi-unit dwellings are permitted in both R3 and R4 districts. The catch is that in the R4 district, the multi-dwelling units shall observe a minimum net density of 16 units per acre and a maximum of 32 units per acre. And then in R3, that ratio is a minimum of 7 and 15 units per acre. So 1800, 1825, and 1845 Tennessee Street are 3 separately platted lots. There will be a minor subdivision to combine these 3 lots into one later on. So prior to this construction, there would be a requirement for an approved major site plan, public improvement plans, and building permits. And just for the note, the property is located within Tier 1 of the urban growth area, which is inside the city limits. On the topic of density, sorry, I forgot to cover that. The applicant is proposing 20 units per acre, so right in the middle of the 16 to 32 permitted in the R4 district. So here are the rezoning criteria. I'll just quickly run through those. So the first one is the conformance with a comprehensive plan. Plan 2040 has goals for residential development such as infill desires, varieties of housing types, transitions between neighborhoods, higher densities, and improving existing neighborhoods. So staff finds that this does conform with the first criteria. The second criteria is for the zoning of nearby property, including any overlay districts. So the nearby properties are zoned R3, R4, and R2 to the south. I'll quickly jump over to a zoning map for your reference. So the pale yellow is R3, the darker yellow to the south is R2, and then across Tennessee Street to the east is R4, which is high density. So I'm going to jump back to the criteria real quick. So the character of the neighborhood is the third criteria. The dominating character of this neighborhood is residential with various dwelling types, including detached dwellings and multi-units. Fourth on the list is the plans for the area. There are no sector plans or area plans for this area, but it is within the Babcock Neighborhood Association. Next is the suitability of the subject property. R4 zoning is suitable as it facilitates the residential development at a density of 20 units per acre, which would fit this project. This is a land use map. The two 1800 and 1845 are currently vacant, so they're just blank. So the rest, the normal yellow is single-family residential, which is pretty much all around here, and then the darker orange color is multifamily. So some more criteria to review. The length of time that the subject property has remained vacant. As mentioned, 1800 and 1845 are vacant, but they had structures on them that were demolished sometime between 1995 and 2000. Staff was not able to find any demolition plans on file for those two properties. And then 1825 has had a detached dwelling on it. That is proposed to remain as is. It will stay with this development. Next is the extent to which approving the rezoning will detrimentally affect nearby properties. Staff has determined that approving this rezoning would not adversely affect nearby properties, as a major site plan is required with this development, which would require full code compliance. Staff did receive a public inquiry past the due date for being included in your staff report and agenda. So I just quickly wanted to touch on some of their concerns. Most of them had to do with building height, building setbacks, traffic, parking, infrastructure, construction impacts, and environmental impacts. All of those are handled at the site planning process. All of those are criteria that staff looks at to make sure that those are not being infringed upon. So I just wanted to kind of reiterate that those concerns will be addressed at the site plan process. It's just during the rezoning, we don't really address those because we don't really have a constructive plan in front of us to review. So I just wanted to cover those to make sure that it was known that those will be addressed by staff. Moving on, the gain, if any, to public health, safety, and welfare due to the denial of the application. Staff has found that denial of this project would not provide any gain to the public. And then finally, we have the staff recommendations. So staff is recommending approval of this rezoning and forwarding the rezoning request to the City Commission with a recommendation of approval based on the findings presented in the staff report. That concludes my presentation. These are just the review criteria for your reference. I know the design professional is on Zoom, and I believe the property owner is here in person. So I will answer any questions that you have.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Does the applicant have a presentation that he or she would like to make?
Yes. Hi. I'll make a couple quick notes here. I guess I'd like to say good evening. I'm Chris Cunningham from CT Design. Tim Keller with Birchwood Development Group or Birchwood Gardens is there in person, I believe. The request you have in front of you is, as Drew well put, it's to rezone this land from R3 to R4. The property has been vacant for quite some time, and we think this is a great use for that site. The increased density gains us a couple units, and we think that would be very good to up the density in this area, and it aligns with the city's goals. And so, yeah, I'd happy to answer any questions. Would like to thank you for your consideration on this, and would like you to approve this request. And I'd like to thank staff for their time and effort in putting the recommendation together. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any public comment about this item? Seeing none in the room. Oh, sorry.
Kyle Thompson. I just wondered why 1800 Tennessee is between 1825 and 1845, since there is an 1800 Tennessee on the other side of the
That on my
road.
list of questions.
Yeah.
Is there any other public comment in the room? Becky, is there anyone online wishing to speak?
That is very curious.
I am not seeing anyone using the raised hand function indicating they wish to speak.
Thank you. Does the applicant wish to make any further comment, any response? Okay, I'll bring it back to the commission for questions and discussion.
Thanks. I had that same question written down. And I don't know that it matters a lot, but if it is an error, that might cause a problem down the road.
Yes. So essentially with the minor subdivision, those addresses they would ultimately change because this would be adding more units. So part of that minor subdivision process is creating an address memo to assign addresses to those lots. So they will change.
All right.
I think essentially it was probably just put as a placeholder when they were originally subdivided, and then nothing happened.
It doesn't represent any kind of a risk legally down the road. Should there be a challenge of some kind, or this would find itself in some other weird state where it's a non-factual address.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like it's a placeholder, effectively. What it really addressing to is 1800 block of Tennessee Street, because it was never formally addressed And so addressing is just one way a parcel gets a number. There's about 4 different ways that a parcel gets an actual number. So it's just a leftover from an old remnant that will get corrected with the minor sub that
Got it.
Drew was mentioning.
The block and the lot number will be the legal descriptions, I believe.
Correct. So yeah, you would have a revised legal description with a lot and block. You would get a revised PIN number. You would get a revised plates. I could keep going. All the numbers will revise when that goes through, and then it'll get formally addressed.
And is it the Postal Service that assigns the numbers?
No, it's actually Planning and Development Services.
Oh, really? What power?
Did you see how he said that? No, it's actually us.
I drove by this earlier in the week, and it's, R4 will be a little bit more dense than certainly across the street to the south, and what they plan to build will be somewhat different than those just immediately surrounding it, but it's not inconsistent, in my view, it's not inconsistent with the majority of that area and where that area goes. One, two, it's been sitting empty for quite some time, and opportunity to build housing seems like a good thing to me, so I'm supportive.
And it absolutely fits with the new code of
Yeah.
wanting to go more dense.
Absolutely.
That's right.
And I like the combination of these lots to get them more dense without going crazy. 20, what did they say, 20 units? And like that to me is a very reasonable number for the size of this lot when I drove past it, in my opinion.
Now, with the zoning, they're not bound to just 20
Correct.
units.
Correct.
So it's important to remember.
Consider that,
it
yeah.
could be more units.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Any other discussion? Any motion?
I'll make it. Let's see if I get it right this time. So approve the request to rezone Z250013, approximately 0.91 acres, located at 1800, 1825, and 1845 Tennessee Street, from R3 to R4, based on the findings presented in the staff report. Sound okay?
Is there a second? Commissioner Thomas. All in favor indicate by raising your right hand.
Discussion.
Offer discussion.
I just am eager to be done. I'll be Any further discussion? All in favor, please raise your right hand. Anyone opposed? It passes unanimously. Okay, so we're moving on to agenda number 3. Ms. Mullins?
Thank you, Commissioners. Molly Mullins, Planner. Okay, our next item is a rezoning request for 530 Rockledge Road and 2222 West 6th Street. The request is to rezone from the M3, which is the mixed corridor district, to the R4 residential high density district. This slide shows the location of the property here with Rockledge Road on this side, McDonald Drive, and West 6th Street. The property owner is seeking to develop a multi-unit residential use at the property. Multi-unit residential uses are permitted in both the M3 and the proposed R4 districts. However, a multi-unit dwelling use in the M3 district requires that 50% of the floor area be devoted to non-residential uses. The property owner is seeking to rezone to be able to develop an exclusively or primarily residential use. The rezoning was reviewed against the rezoning criteria. These were discussed in the staff report included in tonight's packet, and I'll briefly go through staff's review against each. So criteria 1 is conformance with the comprehensive plan. Plan 2040 heavily emphasizes the need for additional residential zoning and land use, higher density residential, and the incorporation of residential infill properties within the existing city limits. Chapter 3, growth and development, as well as Chapter 4, neighborhood and housing, and Chapter 6, economic development, contain multiple goals aimed at increasing a variety of residential options within the city. Conversely, Plan 2040 similarly emphasizes the desire for mixed-use developments, especially as infill opportunities, and multiple goals within those same chapters speak to that priority as well. Those specific related goals were listed in the report. Both of these concerns are similarly prioritized in Plan 2040, and staff found that a rezoning to R4 generally conforms with the comprehensive plan. Criteria 2, we look at the zoning and use of nearby property. The properties are located north of West 6th Street between McDonald Drive and Rockledge Road. The properties are currently vacant and are surrounded by mixed use and open space zoning districts to the north, east, and south, and residential to the west. Here you can see those surrounding zoning districts. And then the surrounding land uses include single and multi-unit residential, office, lodging, vehicle repair, and recreation uses, as well as some vacant properties as well. Here we've got that land use map. Similarly, in criteria 3, we look at the character of the neighborhood. The property sits on an island between those several major roadways. Rockledge Road is a collector street, and McDonald Drive and West 6 are both arterials. The area is generally mixed use from property to property, but there are few properties that contain a mix of uses within a single lot or building. Criteria 4, whether the property is subject to any area plans or sector plans. The properties are not located within a neighborhood association that's registered with the city or any area plans. Criteria 5 is the suitability of the subject property for uses to which it has been restricted under the existing zoning. While the existing M3 zoning on the property permits a wide variety of commercial uses, residential and community uses, it is generally not suitable to most of these. The topography, location, and adjacent land uses make it difficult for many non-residential uses to locate compatibly and successfully. There are significant slopes and vegetated right-of-way setbacks that make the property difficult to see from commercial traffic on those roadways. In general, the area appears to be better suited to residential uses or mixed developments that incorporate a civic or community use rather than commercial uses that require high visibility. Criteria 6 is the length of time the subject property has been vacant as zoned. The subject properties have been vacant since 2015 when a demolition permit was submitted for the existing hotels that were there. Hotel, I think it's just one. Criteria 7 is the extent to which approving the rezoning will detrimentally affect nearby properties. Converting the subject property's zoning designation from the current M3 to the proposed R4 would minimally affect nearby properties. The change in zoning would require a greater base setback for principal buildings and a reduced building height maximum, and residential development is always required to incorporate minimum parking when within existing neighborhoods, regardless of zoning designation. So all of these parameters could reduce the potential impact of new development if it was rezoned. Criteria 8 is the gain, if any, to the public health, safety, and welfare if we were to deny the application as compared to the hardship on the landowner if we were to deny it. Many of the uses permitted under the current zoning are of a more intense commercial or light industrial nature, some lighter intensity commercial uses as well as residential. And maintaining the existing zoning is not likely to result in any direct benefit to public health, safety, and welfare as opposed to approving the residential zone. If the rezoning request is denied, the site must be developed in compliance with the zoning regulations for the M3, including that minimum non-residential component for a multi-unit dwelling. As discussed previously, the characteristics of the site may limit the viability of incorporating a non-residential component, which may result in the lack of mixed-use development there. So based on staff's review, the rezoning request meets the criteria for approval, while Plan 2040 encourages the incorporation of mixed-use development through infill opportunities. The subject property has been vacant and underutilized for several years. Approval of the request will facilitate redevelopment of the property for high-density housing, an equally emphasized need within Plan 2040. The R4 district is compatible as a transitional district to the zoning and use of the neighboring properties. Staff does not anticipate approval of the request to detrimentally affect nearby properties and finds that the denial of the request is unlikely to provide any gain to public health, safety, or welfare. Staff recommends approving the rezoning request and forwarding a recommendation for approval to the City Commission. Thank you. I can answer any questions now, or I do believe the property owner is in attendance, and then we also have the design professional online.
Thank you. The applicant going to make a presentation?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Matthew Falk. I'm the Director of Housing for the Burton Nash Community Mental Health Center. We are the owners of the property. I'm here really to field any questions you might have. This is a project we've been planning for 5 years now. Our plans have changed substantially. We did have high aspirations to have some commercial space for office space. Those plans have changed, and our dedication really is to residential. Our commitment is to help the community address affordable housing needs, and we are committed to making this a residential project to help meet those needs across the community. We serve folks who have limited means, and this is a part of our process of making housing a little more available to that demographic. So if you have any questions, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any public comment? I don't see any in the room.
Not in the room, and there's no one online either.
Okay. Thank you very much. Does the applicant wish to make any other comment? No? Okay. I'll bring it back for commission discussion and questions.
You gonna go?
Did we see something about this lot before?
Yeah, like 3 months ago.
Yeah.
The lot to the north, 515 McDonald. Yep.
Thank you.
Very
When I was
similar
researching, I was trying to Google search and I couldn't find it. So, okay, that makes more sense. I think that this rezoning makes total sense based on, I live in this area, and if there was resident, and I drive on Rockledge 3 times a day sometimes, and if there were commercial up there, I would have no idea. Like, I wouldn't see it. It's up a hill, it's over behind trees, and yes, there's probably gonna have to be some clearing out of some brush and all that stuff to redo the land, but I don't see any reason why restricting this to the M3 would make sense, especially considering that there is residential there, and it's a really good location for folks that want to get on the highway or just get around town. It's mildly centrally located, and it's not so far west or south or east or whatever. It seems like a really good opportunity for infill, especially because we've had 10 years of vacancy and formerly what it was, a burned down hotel. Yeah. So that's my opinion.
Any other comments?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Can you help me remember what non-residential uses are allowed in R4?
In R4, many of the community or civic uses, and then some commercial uses are permitted with use restrictions.
There are a handful of non-residential uses allowed, all right?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, so for me, I really struggle anytime we give up commercial space. But the only thing worse than losing the commercial space is to lose its use altogether by sitting there waiting for something that's never going to come. So I'd support you as well, support the application as well, particularly knowing that there is still the capability that, should the opportunity come, that some non-residential uses might find its way in that, become a little bit of a mixed-use kind of a neighborhood.
Yeah.
And
I have
just,
a question for the client, for the applicant. Is this an investment for Bert Nash, or are you housing clients of yours? What's this project about?
So yeah, this is about housing clients. Well, broadly speaking, this is about providing affordable housing opportunities to our client base. So, we work with individuals who, again, have limited means. I guess there's some detail here. As a community mental health center, our primary revenue is through insurance reimbursements for services provided. So we are able to operate something like a housing property with really actually not even relying on rent. So this is not an investment for us in respect to establishing a rental revenue or things like that in any kind of large way. We happen to sit in a position as an agency that, I guess, privileges us to be able to do some things in the housing market without having to charge an arm and a leg for it. So, we recognize that as an agency. We see that as, a part of our capacity to help the community address a significant need like affordable housing shortages. So we have taken upon ourselves as a component of our vision moving into the future to be an agency that operates a very specific type of housing, which is housing that provides supportive services to individuals, affordable housing that provides supportive services to individuals who need a little bit more help to be in the community and to get through this stage in their life and to make some improvements.
So are you working with the city affordable housing group?
Yes, the A Place for Everyone plan, the homeless and housing strategic plan that was developed by the city and the county. Yes, I have been a party to that. I sat on, I guess, 4 of the 5 work groups that developed the planks of that plan, and yeah, have been a contributor to that project.
And so will these units be permanently affordable?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Sounds like a really good project.
Yeah,
I'm
it
certain
does, and I
it'll
hope
be
it goes
supportive.
through, although, just a reminder that our decision, it really isn't based on what may or may not happen
Right.
with this group. We're making a decision that's gonna run with the land, and they could sell it tomorrow, and it'd be whatever the maximum
Density.
intensity is for our 4.
Yep.
I still support it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in light of that comment, I just want to note that I appreciate staff's efforts to walk us through the criteria and give suggestions as your interpretation of how those apply to this particular question before us. And I think based on your findings, I'm willing to support the project, or the rezoning, rather.
And the permanent affordability is not part of the zoning, is it?
no, that would be, it likely would not come up in any of our review, and it would be something that the property owner decides to do.
Thank you very much.
Make a motion?
Go ahead. You want?
Yeah. I move approval to request rezone Z-25-0016, approximately 3.17 acres at 530 Rockledge Road and 2222 West 6th from M3 to R4, based on the findings presented in the staff report and to the City Commission with a recommendation for approval.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Good job.
Thank you. Is there a second? Commissioner DeVere. Thank you. All in favor indicate by raising your right hand. Another unanimous decision.
Knocking them up.
What an evening. Okay. Avery, you have agenda item 4. Thank you all very much.
Apologize, give me just 1 second. Let me get my slides pulled up. Okay, thank you for your patience. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Avery Kerner. I'm a planner at the Planning Office. This next item before you is for a rezoning request, or rather a request to rezone 0.3 acres from M3 Mixed Corridor District to the R2 Residential Low Density District, or Residential Low Density 2 District, located at 1045 Pennsylvania Street. The property is located in the East Lawrence neighborhood. It is a corner lot with frontage along East 11th Street and Pennsylvania Street, and it is currently developed with a commercial building and parking lot. This map shows the existing zoning at and surrounding the subject property. The property is primarily surrounded by R2 zoning in yellow. To the west and across the alley is a small patch of R3 zoning for residential medium density. And then to the west of that R3 zoning is another small patch of M3 zoned property in red. This shows the existing land uses in and surrounding the subject property. The uses in the area are primarily single detached and 2-unit dwellings shaded in yellow and light brown. The other M3 zoned property, half a block over, is shaded in red for commercial. And then there are also a few multi-unit dwellings scattered or just throughout this neighborhood, and those are indicated in this a little bit darker brown color. And then I did want to point out that the data that's shown on this map is, or the land use data is from 2024, so there are a couple inaccuracies that I just wanted to call attention to. The first is just north of the property at 1039 Pennsylvania Street. The map shows that as being a vacant property, but there was recently a single detached dwelling constructed at that property. And then for the subject property under consideration tonight, the map shows that as being an industrial use, and that it seems to be in reference to a previous manufacturing and production use that was previously on the site, but the most recent use for the property was for a commercial business. This is the list of review criteria that are used to review rezoning requests. Staff's review and analysis of these criteria are discussed in the staff report, and I'll just quickly walk through what those findings were. The first criteria looks at whether the district conforms to the comprehensive plan, and staff's finding is that the proposed R2 district does align with chapters 3 and 4 of Plan 2040, which address residential growth and development within the city, and then neighborhoods and housing. For criteria 2 and 3, the site is in a residential area and is adjacent to R2 zoning. So approval of the request would align the zoning of the property with the surrounding area and allow for development that is compatible with the neighborhood and adjacent properties. For criteria 4, the subject property is not located within an adopted area or sector plan. So Plan 2040 is the guiding plan document. And then criteria 5 is a consideration of the property's suitability for the uses that it's currently restricted to under its current zoning. And being on a corner lot with frontage along an arterial street, which is East 11th Street, does lend itself to being well suited for commercial development. However, staff's finding is that given the size of the property and that the context of the surrounding area is a lower density residential, allows for lower density residential development and uses, the property is better suited for either small neighborhood scale commercial use and development or low density residential use and development. Criteria 6 is not especially applicable to this case since the property is already developed, but the applicant did indicate in their application submittal that the most recent occupant of the site vacated to a larger space at the end of this past October. For criteria 7, approval of the request should not have detrimental effect on nearby properties since the proposed district would allow for the same type of use and development. And for criteria 8, staff's finding is that there would be no significant gain to the public if the rezoning request were to be denied, but denial could result in hardship upon the property owner. The applicant has indicated that the site would require substantial investment to continue a commercial use on the property, so they would rather redevelop the site with single detached dwellings, which are not permitted under the current zoning district. And then the last review criteria is staff's professional opinion or recommendation for the project, and that recommendation is to forward the rezoning request to the City Commission with a recommendation for approval based on the findings presented in the staff report. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Does the applicant wish to make a presentation?
Good evening, Commissioners. Matthew Goff with Barbara Emerson. I'm joined by my associate, Aaron Levy, and representatives of the applicant are here too, and David Clementi as well. This is a pretty straightforward request. We have, at the present time, a functionally obsolete building on an obsolete lot that's too small. These applicants would like to use the two lots as they were originally intended as part of the original town site plat for the City of Lawrence to build two single-family residential structures, much like the single-family structures that are there now, including much like the one that was just built to the north. I believe it's consistent with our long-range planning and our zoning code for infill residential development. I think the staff report does an excellent job of summarizing everything and adequately states our position, so I'm very pleased to stand for questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any public comment regarding this item? Is there any public comment online?
There's no one online.
Mr. Goff, is there anything else to say? Okay. I'll bring it back to the commission for questions and discussion. Well, I think this is just great. I think it's terrific to see single-family housing coming back into East Lawrence. I think that's good.
That building is definitely run down.
Yeah, it's time for a change.
I've been in there when it was the Dragon's Hoard, and a little rough.
Just a reminder, though, it's not about the building or what's on there, but it's about the use. Right?
Well, I guess my point, yes, thank you. My point is like rebuilding something there for that size of lot would not commercially make sense to me. That's how I see it. Like the building's going to have some love done one way or another, and rebuilding it for commercial doesn't seem like the most useful adventure for an investor.
I thought this seemed like a great idea. Turn it back into residential, 2 more residences there. R2 seems great to me.
Anyone care to make a motion?
You're going to say something here?
Go ahead.
I thought you were going to. I make a motion that we approve the request to rezone Z25-0014, approximately 0.3 acres, located at 1045 Pennsylvania Street, from M3 to R2 district, based on the findings presented in the staff report, and forward the request to the City Commission with a recommendation for approval.
Any further discussion?
Need a second?
Second.
Now discussion?
All in favor, please?
Now discussion.
Discussion first before we vote, please.
I asked for that. Okay.
You got to have that after.
After the second.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. I do want to make a comment.
All right.
I know this property very well. My wife and I were owners of this building until earlier this year. and this is a difficult one for me. I've always felt that this property needed something bigger and higher than what we were able to, higher use than what we were able to do with it. And like I'd said about the Rockledge project, the only thing I think worse than letting this leave us as commercial property is to see it sit vacant. And it sat vacant for a long time before we bought it, and man, we tried mightily to find some other things that we could do with that commercially to serve the neighborhood, but we were just unable to, just the circumstances of it. So I'll grudgingly, sadly support this change, just because I had some romantic notions about what that corner might be. Yeah. So thank you for letting me say that.
All in favor indicate by raising your right hand. All opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. Okay, and then we will move on to agenda item number 5. And we'll welcome Ms. Zollner.
Good evening, Vice Chair, Commissioners. Lynn Braddock Zollner, Historic Resources Administrator. I am so excited to be here tonight to talk about the Oriad neighborhood. It's one of my favorite neighborhoods in the city. It's vibrant. It's got so much diversity. And I spent, I think, a third of my life working on the neighborhood plan and the design guidelines. Not quite a third. But I did include some information in your packet that had a timeline, and I'm not going to go over all of that, but I did want you to have that so that we don't have to, sorry, I'm trying to share the wrong one. Let me. My goodness, look at all these PowerPoints. Doesn't it make you feel accomplished when you see all the things that you've been through so quickly? All right. I jumped off the ship so fast and...
Okay, let me give you a hand.
All right, thank you. He was wanting me to sign in, and I'm like, I'm quite certain that's not what I want to do.
You see the one with the chairs?
It should be Planning Commission 1217, right, that one, yeah.
Okay, here we go.
Yay, technology, when it works, it's your best friend. So I promise I will not have as lengthy a presentation as my staff report was. But we haven't talked about the Oriad neighborhood plan and design guidelines in a while. And I did want to give you that background information for those people who weren't with us when we went through that very long and public attended process to do the neighborhood plan and then also to follow up with the design guidelines, which have been very successful in the neighborhood. I think most of the developers that have worked on projects in the neighborhood, as well as most of the residents in the neighborhood, have been pleased, for the most part, with the outcomes for that long planning period. So I certainly want to thank all the neighborhood residents and people in the community that have stayed continually involved in this neighborhood, making sure that that plan and those design guidelines really do protect the things that we're looking to protect as far as that historic character, but also let us evolve into the future with maybe additional density that's compatible with the neighborhood. So the first thing when I asked Becky, I said, so what should I start off with? And she's like, well, you know, the question we get is, why is this a text amendment if we're talking about design guideline changes? Well, the reason for that is in the Land Development Code, it does actually incorporate those Oriad neighborhood design guidelines in total by reference. And so when you're looking to change the guidelines, you do have to go back through through the process with the Historic Resources Commission and with the Planning Commission, and then ultimately the City Commission makes the final determinations on the changes to those design standards. But because they are incorporated by reference, we put it through the process as a text amendment. So even though we're not really doing like lining out in the land development code, because the design guidelines are incorporated by reference, that's the process we use to update those or change those design guidelines. So just briefly, a little bit on the Oriad neighborhood. I know you are all very familiar with it. When we did the plan, and you'll see on the left-hand side of the screen, the little green area, it is a pretty large neighborhood for our historic areas of town. And when we went through the neighborhood planning process, what we recognized is that there's this great cohesiveness of community for this large area, but design-wise, there are very distinct areas of the neighborhood. Part of that is because it's adjacent to the university and the way it developed, and part of that is just the way that it developed over time. So when we zoom in a little bit closer with the neighborhood, we, through the planning process, kind of isolated those distinctions and made districts when we looked at doing an overlay with design guidelines. And this is that timeline that I included for you, just so you know how actively engaged the community was in this process and stayed through the process. And it was a very long process. If you see from 2009 to 2017, that's a long time to stay engaged in a planning process. And this neighborhood really gets kudos for sticking with it. These are those distinct districts I was mentioning, and the district we're specifically talking about this evening is at the top of, or the north end of the neighborhood. It's shown here in pink, and we call it District 1. And here's a little bit closer view of it, so you can see it's kind of from Arkansas to Illinois, and on the north is 9th, and then down the stadium is kind of at the bottom of the district. The uniqueness of this area was that when it developed really with single dwelling residential structures. It was not the really large structures that we saw develop along Tennessee or Kentucky that during the sunflower ammunition boom and housing need in the Second World War many of those structures became multifamily structures. This area really stayed with those smaller houses with larger front yard setbacks and side yard setbacks and rear yards, and then the accessory structure along the alley, if there was an alley in the area. And this is just a photograph to kind of give you that flavor. So having been through the Oriad neighborhood, you know that this is really a different feel than what you get when you're driving down Tennessee Street. So what happened with this process is while we were going through the process and in subsequent years, there was a property that had, we called it a triplex. There may or may not have been more than 3 units, but it was in really bad shape and needed to be removed. And so the property owner did remove it and had plans to redevelop in the future. When we went through the process with the revision to the land development code, the idea was for it to be a duplex on this lot. Well, under the zoning, it would allow a duplex on that particular lot at 9th and Missouri, but with the Oriad neighborhood design guidelines, there was a prohibition on having a duplex, or what we now call a 2-unit dwelling, on a lot unless it had a specific amount of square footage, which was based on the 2006 code for density to allow for a 2-unit dwelling. So the applicant made a text amendment request to the planning office to change the verbiage on page 80 of the Oriad Neighborhood Design Guidelines to remove that 7,260 square foot restriction so that the developer could put a 2-unit dwelling on this property. And then they also requested to take off the restriction that prohibited combining lots in District 1 for higher density development. So they did submit the application, and the City Commission initiated this text amendment back in August. We had a lot of time to research it and try to find the best way to move forward with the project. It was sufficient enough for a neighborhood that has spent this kind of time and interest in making sure development was compatible with the neighborhood character that we held a neighborhood meeting. We held it here at City Hall on one of my favorite Friday night events. And we had a very good turnout, and the developer came, and the developers advocate came, and we had a great discussion with people that live in the community and people that are interested in the neighborhood. And so after that meeting, I'm going to give you a placeholder. We had some discussion. But after that meeting, then it went to the Historic Resources Commission in November, and that information is in your staff report as well. And then, of course, tonight it's here with you, and then it will be forwarded to the City Commission after you finish reviewing it. What came out of that neighborhood meeting was very interesting, because it was one of those times when you're a planner and you get to step back and say, yeah, this is the way it's supposed to work. There was total collaboration between the developer and the neighborhood. And the neighborhood is saying, well, you know, we really don't mind what you want to do, but we don't want to change all those years of planning and design, particularly for this area that's so unique, just for you to be able to do what you want to do. So they said, staff, why don't you go back and look and see if you can come up with something? And so in the meantime, the person that wants to develop the property and their advocate sent back, that had submitted the amendment, sent back to staff and said, you know, we don't want to upset the neighborhood. We just want to be able to get this higher density on this lot. And so we're revising our request. So the request that they did as revision was just to take out that requirement for that 7,260 square feet to have a 2-dwelling unit. But it left the prohibition on combining lots and all the other things that were supposed to protect the character of this specific district. So then staff did what the neighborhood asked and said, okay, what could we do so we can get a little bit more density, which is what our comp plan and our neighborhood plans and their strategic plan for the city, what we're looking for, but at the same time protect the character of this neighborhood and be supportive of a neighborhood who has really stayed true through time with the character of the neighborhood and trying to protect that character. And what we found out is that there were very few places in the neighborhood that would be impacted. There's a map in your staff report and a little bit of a discussion on that. And I have that map on the screen, and the bright magenta colored lot down in the right-hand corner is a parking lot. And so while you might say it could be impacted it's probably not going to be, because it's the property ownership and the development of the parking lot is associated with other things. The red in the center of the screen was a project that came through the Historic Resources Commission, and the Historic Resources Commission said, no, the guidelines say you can't have a duplex here, and the applicant appealed to the City Commission, and the City Commission has approved a duplex that will be constructed at a later date on that lot. So that really takes that lot out as well. So then what we're left with with the lot here at 9th and Missouri, that is the reason we're here this evening, and one other lot in the whole District 1. So staff went back to the drawing board and said, okay, what if we just say, if there's a vacant lot at the time of the adoption of this text amendment, they can build a 2-unit dwelling. And then we'll leave the restrictions in there about combining lots. And this person gets to add density, which he will have to make compatible with the structures in the neighborhood. We get extra density. The developer gets to build his project, and the neighborhood's still protected because we haven't changed the overall basis for what those design guidelines were done to protect. So real quickly, the HRC did review this, as I mentioned, in November, and according to the development code, the HRC is responsible for the design guidelines, those design standards that go along with an urban conservation overlay district. And so they were looking specifically at those, at the OREA neighborhood plan, at the design guidelines, and the change on page 80 to allow this 2-unit dwelling on this particular lot. Then they had to determine whether or not it changed the intent of the guidelines. And the Historic Resources Commission was of the opinion that this small, minor change to the guidelines does not change the intent of the guidelines or the plan, and that you can still maintain the character of District 1 with those design guidelines with this change. So they recommended to the Planning Commission and to the City Commission that this text amendment be approved. So then, now it's your turn. The Planning Commission is supposed to review for planning and zoning implications. And to do this, you should consider Plan 2040, the OREA neighborhood plan. And then ultimately, you also have to make a determination whether or not this proposed text amendment meets the criteria identified in Section 20-1604D4 of the Land Development Code for a text amendment. So you've kind of got a dual thing that you need to do this evening. I'm going to hit on a couple of things, but on page 9 and 10 in your staff report, we went through Plan 2040 and the OREA neighborhood plan, and we called out all those sections that talked about density and talked about design and character. One of the great things that I enjoyed doing when I dug into this text amendment is there's a lot of great stuff in 2040 that we simply just don't pull out sometimes and look at individually when it comes to our unique neighborhoods and our unique character and our historic character. So on page 46 of 2040, it says it great that Lawrence has remarkable heritage and unique history, and that we need to promote that. We need to protect it. We need to promote it. And but at the same time, you want to be able to move forward into the future with things that are best for the community. So as I mentioned on page 9 and 10, it goes through all of the, this is in Tier 1, and we are looking to maximize development opportunities and increase density, but then we also have all the information about preserving the character defining elements of historic neighborhoods. And then we also have a chapter in 2040 that speaks specifically to historic resources. And it does talk about doing things like overlay districts and design guidelines to protect those historic areas of the city. And then with your criteria for review and decision making, you have 4 things that are defined by the development code to be able to evaluate if a text amendment is appropriate. And when staff looked at these 4 items, we decided that this really is a text amendment that addresses a specific development issue. And so it really does meet that criteria because it's very specific, it's small in nature, it's not a general overview or overdue of the guidelines or the plan. We did have several communications before the neighborhood meeting and some after and some for the Historic Resources Commission. Those were all included in your packet. We did not receive any communications for this evening's meeting, so all the communications that we had were included in your packet. So staff is recommending to you this evening that you forward the language that's proposed by staff that would, the language is on the screen here and also in your staff report, that lots presently platted meeting the requirements for a 2-unit dwelling development under the provisions of the 2006 Land Development Code, a lot having a minimum of 7,260 square feet may maintain the ability to construct this type of use. Vacant lots that exist in District 1 on whatever our adoption date may be, may construct a 2-unit dwelling in accordance with the standards in the Land Development Code April 1st, 2025 edition and the applicable guidelines of this document. Within District 1, lots shall not be created or modified to accommodate the construction of 2-unit dwellings or other high-intensity residential dwellings. So one of the things that I kind of glossed over and didn't hit you with is we were, when we were looking at this, as long as we were talking about making a change to the design guidelines, it seemed appropriate to take out the word duplex all the way through the document and insert it with code language that we're using in the Land Development Code now to try to create some consistency. And so you'll see the word duplex marked out throughout the design guidelines and replaced with that 2-unit dwelling. So staff is recommending that you forward a recommendation for approval of the staff revised language for Amendment 25-0004 to the OREA Neighborhood Design Guidelines to the City Commission based on the information in the staff report. And I would be happy to stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Is there an applicant presentation?
There is. Good evening. Paul Warner with Paul Warner Architects. Lynn, awesome job. So you clearly did all the heavy lifting on this one, and I think explained it very well. It's got to be one of the more unique things we've been through. No argument. Just a couple things. One, I want to make sure everybody's clear. So my client bought this dilapidated triplex at an auction. And at the time, we thought we could go back with a duplex, so we went ahead and tore it down. That's why the lot's all cleaned up. And then, through a matter of a few things, found out we really couldn't, and then thought the Land Development Code was going to solve all that. And then it kind of did, and then we still found this 7,200 square feet. So that's what got us here. But to Lynn's point, I think, some of the neighbors were put off about what we wanted to do. And then when they heard the history and remember the triplex that had a tarp over the top of it and really felt like going back with a duplex there, and forcing my client to build a single family home was kind of penalizing the wrong person. So I'll give him credit for looking at the map and realizing that we probably were penalizing the wrong guy. So Lynn pointed out the map that you're all familiar with. She's exactly right. There's really 4 properties. One's actually owned by KU Endowment, so that is off the table. The other one on Main is already done, and it's really this lot. And the lot on Arkansas is owned by the lady that owns the house next to it. So she can kind of do something with that lot if she wants, but she clearly likes the area, and I don't see anything happening. So I appreciate all the work. I mean, this is a ton of work for one lot, but that's where we're at, and appreciate your help and look forward for your support and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any public comment about this item?
I'm Kyle Thompson. I'm the chairperson of the Orid Residents Association, and I'm only speaking for myself, but I think my comments will reflect the consensus of the people that showed up at that October meeting. The Orid design guidelines have helped lower the friction between landlords and developers over the last 9 years. My joke has been that I've had to attend a lot fewer meetings in the last few years because of that. The guidelines allowed reviews by Lynn rather than a prolonged process for approval. My other joke is that we have not always liked the architectural results, but we get porches. I think the Orid has become denser without drastically changing the architectural character of the neighborhood. We've become denser for 100 years, unlike most neighborhoods. I really want to emphasize how it has made the bureaucratic process a lot simpler for everybody involved. Because of demographics and government financing changes, there will be fewer students in the future. I think that the density should focus on family-friendly development rather than student-oriented development. I read that 13% of housing in Tuscaloosa, Alabama is football-related. My concern is that District 1 will become more football houses and short-term rentals because of the Gateway District. And we advocate maintaining the character of the District 1 in the text amendment. I think the alternative language assuages our concerns about combining lots for much higher density residences not in harmony with the prevalent housing styles in the district. I think it encourages a gentle density, which I think is in keeping with the goals of the LDC. 3 or 4 of the neighborhoods are meeting with Dave Cronin and Jessica Mordinger next month about traffic calming relating to the Gateway District in this area, including the area under discussion. I hope, I hope that the Planning Commission continues to work on transit, bike infrastructure, and transit-oriented development throughout the city to lessen our reliance on the automobile. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Becky, is there any other public comment online?
No, there's no one online.
Okay. I'll bring it back to the commission for questions, discussions.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
I have a question to staff, and I would like to maybe start the conversation with maybe a reminder of what would be the definition of a vacant lot for the code in this case. What do we consider a vacant lot? If it's just a land that has been undeveloped and has no structure on it, no building on it, or is a vacant house that is just been sitting with no tenant or resident living in it? Like, what would be the definition itself?
Typically, when we talk about vacancy, this instance, it's a vacant lot. So while a house may not have an occupant for some time, or you might be in the middle of renovation and the property may be vacant as it's being renovated, that's not the same as kind of a vacant lot in that instance. So really, when we get at what the guidelines in the code is kind of no structure, just land that's involved and proceeding on. So it's best way to think of it is if you have a commercial property or a residence and you're transitioning or going into it, you might be trying to find a tenant, or you might be trying to find someone to rent the property. That's not a vacancy necessarily in terms of the property. It just doesn't have a tenant for that period of time.
Okay, so but in this case, while we're trying to find a balance here, when we say in this was well we word this when we say vacant, it's like there's nothing in it. It's just dirt. Let's put it this way.
Correct. It'd be
no structure at all.
Correct.
No building, no nothing. Okay. That's my question.
Good question.
Yeah, good.
So just I'm not even sure I want to ask, so I'm going to, I guess. This all started as a catalyst with one lot needing the ability to do something that was prohibited by the ORIA design, neighbor design. Is that correct? There are only, I think I read there are only 3 lots in all of ORIA that really would fall under this rule change.
It would be for those in District 1. So not necessarily Oriat as a whole, excuse me, but for those properties in District 1.
Okay. All right. I guess this was the easiest path to get to just this one thing on this one lot?
Yeah, I guess the best way to put it is the way that the guidelines kind of work through and the districts is there was a lot of those kind of checks that were asked to be put in place. And so to go through that, this is kind of one of those easier routes to get to that question.
All right. I certainly don't want anybody to start over with a different path, but
No.
I just what boggles my mind that we're all this coming out of this just one simple thing we're trying to get done. But
Except that it seems proportionate to the amount of time it took to establish the guidelines in the beginning.
well, I think that's probably true, but relative to what we're trying to get done, it's a heavy lift.
Yeah.
It is.
Anyway, is there any concern that if this is adopted, and I currently don't have an objection to it, if this was adopted, that someone could subdivide an existing lot and be qualified to build duplexes, two dwelling units, structures on each one of those things?
So the way the proposed language is, the lot has to be vacant at the time of the adoption of this text amendment. So the lot would have to be vacant. Say if you approve the text amendment and forward it to the city commission and the city commission approves it in February and it's published. So on March 1st, the lot would have to be vacant to be able to take advantage of this text
Thank you for
amendment.
that.
And so there are only a couple of lots.
That's the protection then, okay. All right. Other than just being puzzled why we have to go this route to get to this solution for this one lot, I don't have an objection to it. I think it runs with the spirit of what we're trying to do in the LDC. I don't find any concerns about how this might impact the ORIA neighborhood. It seems to be well protected and a lot of the guardrails within the neighborhood design, so I'd be in favor of supporting it.
I agree.
It seems to me it's excuse me, go ahead.
Well, forgive me if I missed something earlier when it was addressed, but the change from duplex to two-unit dwelling, what's the distinction and history with that?
Well, I will tell you, if I could train myself to say 2-unit dwelling, or if the planners would give me $1 for every time I said duplex. It's just a shift in terminology across the United States. We're moving away from identifiers more to uses, so it's a 2-unit dwelling instead of just a common duplex name. So it's just a change in nomenclature. There's no change in the building design. It's just a shift in terminology.
Planners get paid by the word.
Yeah. letter. No.
This is the first time I ever heard that term.
And Jeff?
It seemed like it's trying to rewrite something that is much more customary, but that's the way it goes. 2 units sounds like it could be segregated and not necessarily joining in that simple term versus duplex is unknown.
Well, and some of us thought of duplexes as things that were horizontal and townhomes as things that were vertical. And both of them are just 2 units put together horizontally or put together vertically.
Well, my understanding, townhomes are owned and private residences, duplexes are rentals.
Not necessarily.
Is that right?
Not necessarily.
Because I live in a townhome.
Yeah.
I thought that was a code
A
issue.
2-unit townhome? Yeah.
I would love Jeff to clarify this because we talked at length about this during the development of the Land Development Code.
By being paid by the word?
Yeah. Just like me.
So when we made a very intentional change with the land development code, and what we did was we brought the language from the building code over, and in the building code, duplex isn't something that appears in there. It shows up as a 2-unit dwelling. We did that intentionally for exactly the reasons that we're kind of seeing here is one person's duplex might be another person's townhome, might be in a third person's up, down, or any other iteration of the word. And so what we realized was instead of having a code that worked through a lot of definitions where you had to kind of go through that. We just said, well, let's just bring the building code language over because if it's two new unit there, we tie it here. And this is just that continuation of us continuing the language tie so that this document lines up with the land development code, which then lines up with the building code. And so there's continuity as you move throughout the development process for that same term effectively. And you all highlighted one of the great conversations from the land development code is duplex an ownership type, or is it a construction type, or is it a access type, and any number of ways you can take that.
Yes, lots.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
So, hey, Lynn, so I probably should know this, but natural disaster happens, that wouldn't change anything, even if the lot becomes vacant because of something, that this would still apply?
God forbid.
Correct, because it would have to be vacant
As of
that adoption
As of that
date.
adoption. So if they had to rebuild, are there new restrictions or what would rebuilding look like? I mean, would that be land development code, or would that be the ORIAD? Any thoughts on that?
Well, it would have to meet the ORIAD neighborhood design guidelines. And to make sure that we're clear on this, there are lots in District 1 that meet that 7,000 plus square footage requirement for a 2-unit dwelling. So they will continue to have that ability to build a 2-unit dwelling. It will just be those smaller lots. And the thought process is, if the lot is smaller, it should have a smaller structure so you can maintain that front yard, side yard, rear yard.
Okay. I think I understand. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate your saying we are all familiar with the ORIAD area, because I was not.
Oh.
But when I looked at this that showed the design, and I went through all that, I was truly impressed, and I thought, that is a neighborhood that deserves protection for all the work that went into this. And so, yes, it was one lot, but I thought, my goodness, it should be a lot of work for that one lot based upon everything that was here. And I don't remember how it was in here, but it talked about, folks, you can't let your house just run down intentionally. And I thought, oh, that was very interesting as well. So you can change what you want to have there. Do people do that? They say, well, we'll just let the water run and let it freeze and let it go to hell in a handbasket, and then we'll come in.
Right, and unfortunately, that does happen. It doesn't happen as often now because the city of Lawrence adopted maintenance code, property maintenance code. So if your neighbor or someone else says, hey, this house hasn't had a roof on it in 6 weeks, somebody needs to take a look at this, they can call into our code enforcement and they will check into that. So the intent of that maintenance policy is not to allow properties to become substandard, so that demolition is the only answer.
Well, I was impressed, and I did see on here a younger Jeff Crick's name appear in here, and your name appear, and some others from 2012 looking at this to come up with this document, and I was very impressed, very impressed.
Thank you. And I can't give enough attention to this neighborhood, who has just stayed involved in protecting the character of their neighborhood while allowing it to be so vibrant and changing right next to the university. And Kyle has certainly been involved in this since the beginning as well, and has a fantastic historic home. But the neighborhood gets the credit for both of those documents.
Okay.
Well, I think that the staff and you get the credit as well, because this is clearly a collaboration with a lot of teeny tiny details that took a long time because of the nature of the project. I think it's something to be applauded vigorously.
Yeah.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Any further comment?
Make a motion? Any motion? You want to make it? You can do it.
Ready for a motion?
Yeah.
Two motions or one?
Is it two motions? Is it a one big motion?
Because all the language is just in that one, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, are we reading all the language, or are we just, because there's a very simple two-line thing here, approve the, just do that?
I think so.
That's it? Okay.
Yeah,
Buy it.
it would be one motion, and if it helps, you could reference the staff language
Okay.
that we identified, because that is quite a paragraph there for you.
Yeah, we'll try to get us out of here. Okay, so I'll go ahead and try it. Make a motion that we approve the text amendment AMDT-25-0004 to the Oriad Neighborhood Design Guidelines and forward a recommendation of approval to the City Commission.
As a point of clarity, are you forwarding the language that staff's, and hopefully I get this right, Lynn will correct me if I'm wrong here, staff's recommended amendment?
Yes, yes.
Oh, sorry, staff revised language.
Oh. Should I say that differently?
We just want to make sure that we're conveying your language preference forward to the governing body. So we just want to make sure that we're getting the right language set in there, because the document you have has a couple of iterations of the language, so as it kind of progressed on, so we wanted to make sure we got the last one that you wanted to forward on. And so the language that Lynn had highlighted was the staff revised language for that amendment. So I just wanted to make sure that that's the
Since you've got
motion.
kind of a specific thing in mind, could we see the language on the slide?
Yeah, that might be better, yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Gary. With the assist. Oh, there it is.
There it is.
Yeah. That's,
Does that help?
Yep.
yes.
Okay, I'll try reading it again. Make a motion that we forward a recommendation for approval of the staff revised language for AMDT-25-0004 to the Oriad Neighborhood Design Guidelines to the City Commission. Okay.
And
Do we want to include a recommendation that they approve it?
They could,
do we want to include the comment about striking all the duplex instances and replacing with two-unit
Yes.
dwelling?
yeah, yes.
Isn't
That's in that revised language, though, isn't it?
Wanted to just highlight that it was the language plus that, so we made sure we conveyed that up. And I know we're kind of making this a little bit more complicated, but we want to make
I
sure that
can
we
add-
convey that correct.
And include the I'll say that. Okay. So can we put that up? Okay.
Jeff, would you restate the motion that Commissioner Duar just made? Will you state it?
I can definitely try once we get to, I think Commissioner's trying to.
I'm going to make it, and then he can, yeah.
All right.
Okay, so the Planning Commission forwards a recommendation for approval of the staff revised language for AMDT-25-0004 and the change from the word duplex to two-unit dwelling to the Oriad Neighborhood Design Guidelines to the City Commission. Did I miss a part of that?
No, that gets us there.
That gets, okay, thank you.
Got it.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor indicate by raising your right hand. Any opposed? Unanimous.
Good meeting, Chair. Vice Chair.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it, everybody.
Now, as some of you know, I had to resign from the Metropolitan Planning Organization Board, and I was intrigued at our orientation to learn that one of our commissioners has a lot of transportation background, and that he might be willing, if he were nominated, to be the city planning commissioner on the Lawrence Douglas County Metropolitan Planning Organization Policy Board. So because of that background, I would like to nominate Commissioner Wilson to take on that responsibility.
I would second it if he's, are you going to do it? I'll second it.
As long as the pay is the same.
Double your pay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Jeff's smile says it all.
All in favor?
Yes.
Okay. Congratulations.
Oh, thanks.
All right, now, Commissioner DeVar, were you trying to get a motion out about adjournment, perhaps?
I was trying, yes, preempting. A motion to adjourn.
Second.
And if I may, before for motion on that one, just wanted to highlight as a reminder, your mid-month meetings will start on January 14th. So keep that date on your calendar and look out for that in your email. And I apologize for stopping you mid-motion.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Yes.
Happy New Year.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mid-months. 14th.